Jesus Christ. I fucking hate California. I love California for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of good things about California, but I also... It being as blue as it is does tend to lead to a few of the policies I disagree with Democrats on getting passed. And that is what just happened, literally on Tuesday. Last Tuesday. Let's take a look. As a person who vapes and lives in California, this particular bill strikes pretty close to home for me. Or this law that has been passed, I suppose. R.J. Reynolds sues California over flavored tobacco ban. So this story specifically is about R.J. Reynolds suing the state of California, but they're also going to give us the details about the ban itself, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. On Tuesday, the state's voters overwhelmingly, but I should mention, by the way, the ballot was a little bit misleading in the way it was worded. I feel like a lot of people who voted yes on this probably did not understand the extent to which this would go. Anyway, the company's lawsuit, on Tuesday, the state's voters overwhelmingly supported letting a 2-year-old law take effect. The company's lawsuit is viewed by anti-smoking advocates as a tactic that could keep menthol cigarettes on the market longer. R.J. Reynolds, the maker of Newport menthol cigarettes and top-selling vaping products, filed a federal lawsuit on Wednesday challenging California's landmark ban on flavored tobacco, a day after voters overwhelmingly approved it. Now, obviously, it did get approved by the voters. Here's the thing, though. There's a very famous... Democracy is good. You know, usually I like democracy. It's pretty good. Let me see if I can find it. But there's a very important thing that you guys have to understand about democracy, okay? You know what else was very heavily supported, overwhelmingly supported back in the day when it came about? The prohibition of alcohol in America. And we all know how that went, don't we? How all prohibitions of any substance or thing in America tends to go. It always ends up being a failure that causes addicts and people that consume the thing to suffer, criminal organizations to flourish, and just overall everyone like less money. Less, it doesn't get taxed, and so less money goes to the state for funding like programs and whatnot. It's all really fucking stupid. Anyway, here's the thing you have to understand about democracy. And I'm going to let this man explain it.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
That is pretty much as simple as it gets. Doesn't get more simple than that, if I'm being honest. The pauses make the clip pure perfection. I think the fact that like if you haven't seen the clip, you do not expect that man to say the word retarded. You know, it's just that it doesn't seem like the kind of word in that guy's vocabulary, you know? You'd think he'd talk like Gandalf, like a Tolkien character or something. The state law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom 2 years ago would prohibit the sale of all flavored tobacco and vaping products. Like what I vape. Within weeks, undercutting a sizable part of sales for... of vaping products within weeks, undercutting a sizable part of sales for Reynolds and other tobacco companies. Reynolds is seeking an injunction to keep the law from taking effect. Please keep the law from taking effect long enough for me to get out of here. Supporters of the ban denounced the company's latest move. This is a corporation that sells deadly products, true, trying desperately to overcome the will of the people of the state of California. What about the will of the people that want to be able to consume the product? That aren't hurting anybody but theoretically themselves. Okay? Manipulating the legal system in an attempt to undo democracy. That is technically true. Though I would say that, like, democracy, it doesn't always make the right decision. If the state of California voted to re-legalize slavery, just full-on chattel slavery, do you think there'd be a problem with opposing in the legal system, trying to oppose that democratic decision? I don't think so. I'm not saying this is as bad. I'm just saying that it getting voted for democratically does not mean it is a good decision. Said Desmond Jensen, a senior lawyer in tobacco control programs at the Public Health Law Center. So I'm going to stop right here and say a lot of people have been talking about, this is based, this is so based, yeah, fuck vaping, vaping is cringe. The problem is, this ban does not ban cigarettes. It bans some menthol and flavored cigarettes, but the vast majority of cigarettes and cigarettes smoked by people are not that, and will still be out there and getting smoked. Here's the thing, though. Vaping is the reason why my mom doesn't smoke a pack a day of cigarettes anymore. Vaping is the reason why a lot of people I know have been able to quit smoking. And I assure you, as somebody who grew up with a mom who smoked a pack a day, I know what it's like to be around a cigarette smoker. The smell, the stains, the way it affects your teeth and your breath, and just the fact that when you're around someone who smokes cigarettes, you can literally just sense you just get nauseous being around them. I literally get nauseous being around someone who smokes cigarettes because it's just, I can literally smell, taste, and feel the vibe of the cigarette smell on them. Not to mention the dangers of secondhand smoke, which, by the way, if you're a smoker and you're in the car with a smoker, they're going to be smoking in the car. And just because they've got that window open doesn't mean you're not going to be inhaling the smoke. Thing is, though, vaping, for a lot of people in chat, as well as my mom, and hell, it could have been for myself. I might have resorted to cigarettes at some point in my life were it not for vaping. I've never smoked a cigarette, but you better believe if it got down to it, if I needed to stream today and I was craving nicotine and vapes are banned, I'd go and I'd pick up a pack of cigarettes. And I'd be lighting up a cigarette between segments, killing myself way faster than these things probably do. And the side effects are more evident and worse. So here's the thing. Vapes are absolutely harmful. A big part of it is the fact that cigarettes, for a very long time, we basically achieved, I'd say, socially, what we wanted to achieve with cigarettes, right? We basically reached the point where, if you saw a guy at school smoking cigarettes or something, or at a party, you kind of, most people kind of weren't cool with that. Didn't think smoking was cool, didn't think it was appealing or anything. And vaping came around, and now all of a sudden it's well, we lost all that progress. Teens are vaping like crazy. And it's hard to tell if they are, too. It's easier to hide. The problem is, I've heard the argument oh, well, teens are vaping, and they're getting their hands on vapes, and it's easier to hide, and all that stuff. And it's okay, so here's our options, then. We have prohibition, which is what California's going with, which has always historically failed. It's just going to result in people buying their vapes from people that went over the border, bought a bunch of vapes, came over, and then sell them to a bunch of teenagers. So the money's just going to go to criminal enterprises in some way, shape, or form. And whether it just be some guy who's just some teenager's plug for vapes, or literal actual drug trafficking institutions that are institutions, corporations, or conglomerations, or organizations, whatever the term is, now are going to be able to use vapes. Oh my God. Can you imagine how much easier it's going to be for drug traffickers here in California now? They can literally just go over to Vegas, grab a shit ton of vapes, sneak it over the border to California, and make a killing. Anyway, this is going to bolster criminal enterprises in California far more than they already have been. It is going to cause... I cannot wait. I can absolutely not... You are going to see cigarette smoking among teens skyrocket in California. It is going to be nuts, because you're going to first see viral videos of teens that are suffering from nicotine withdrawals, having mental breakdowns in class. So every high school in California and a lot of middle schools, you're going to see videos coming out of kids losing their shit because they're on edge nonstop, and they're doing a test, and they're they banned vapes 1 week ago and I'm losing my shit. And some kid kicks their chair and they turn around and beat the shit out of their classmate and kill them or something. That kind of stuff's going to be happening. No doubt. Teenagers, can you imagine the nightmare of taking an entire generation of teenagers cold turkey off nicotine? Vape, the vape cravings, the cravings for a vape are worse than the cravings for a cigarette, from what I've heard. It's going to be so bad. All the kids that aren't going through bad withdrawals are going to be the ones that are buying it illegally from some guy that's their plug. And the other, murder due to nicotine withdrawals. All I'm saying is, if you're at 0% chance to murder somebody, going through cold turkey nicotine withdrawals add some percentage of a chance of you killing somebody out of anger to that measure, okay? It whittles down your rational thinking and your patience quite a bit. Xander Hall, I have to vape on the walk to work, or I might legitimately hit someone at work. Yeah. Talk to a smoker or anybody who's got a nicotine addiction or who uses nicotine. Like, they'll tell you, like, I need to get my smoke break right now. Do not talk to me until I've had my cigarette. Do not talk to me until I've had like some nicotine. I cannot handle a conversation right now. Like, yeah. The walk-in fridge. Oh, you vape in the walk-in fridge? That's funny. This just isn't going to work. Is this a ban on just flavored vapes? Yes. So basically, it seems like there might still be non-flavored vapes, but like they're going to be tobacco flavored. Have you ever tasted tobacco flavored vape juice before? Because I have. It made me vomit. It made me just I literally took the hit and I started coughing from it and like retching from the taste and the flavor and the way it hit until I vomited. And I vomited for like 3 straight minutes because of it. So yeah, it's just, this is, can we talk about prohibition and how great of an idea it is? The failure of prohibition. And I feel like the American prohibition in this case, like the one of alcohol, is the perfect comparison to this, because that prohibition was also overwhelmingly popular. Oh, Knowledge Husk made a video on it. This is perfect. Yeah, let's go. Here we go. I want you to look at how many parallels there are here.
Know the story? In the 1920s, those half-witted crazies from the rural parts decided that alcohol was the product of Satan's temptation to man. Mobsters popped up, people died, and everyone decided that it was a bad idea. Right? Well, not entirely. Prohibition is one of those moments in American history that is often pointed to as one of the great missteps in the nation's timeline, amongst other things. But it wasn't as clear-cut as it initially seems. So with that, we'll be taking a look at American prohibition of alcohol. Alcohol itself has been a part.
Oh, I hope he talks about how the U.S., the American government poisoned casks of stuff that, I think it was like ethanol or something that you use for making liquor. They poisoned it, knowing that bootleggers were going to use it, steal it, and use it to make alcohol and moonshine for, like, speakeasies and whatnot. So the U.S. government poisoned it. Methanol, thank you. They poisoned it to kill the people consuming the illegal alcohol. So yeah, prohibition, guys, such a good idea.
Part of culture for a very, very long time. While I don't intend to delve into the history of alcohol today, I do feel it's important to know why people decided it was worth banning in the first place. First, let's start off in 1791 in the relatively new United States.
Also, guess what wasn't invented in 1791, or frankly, even like the early 1900s? Reliable access to clean drinking water in America. Drinking liquor was how we kept people in cities from getting cholera for so fucking long. I think that the scientist's name was John Snow, literally John Snow. He looked at like maps of cholera outbreaks in his city and overlaid that with a map of where the local wells for water were and where the local breweries were. And the areas around water wells were loaded up with people getting cholera, but the people living around breweries didn't have it because people drinking liquor from the breweries weren't getting cholera. Yeah. So it was also stupid considering the fact that drinking alcohol was one of the most reliable ways to drink something without probably getting sick back then.
States. The Revolutionary War had left a noticeable debt in the nation's financials. To ease this strain, a tax was proposed on the sale of alcohol produced within the nation. The idea to tax alcohol...
And that is fine. I really like the idea of taxing it. Not taxing it for the consumers, because you're like price gouging addicts. Because like when alcoholic, like, let's be honest. Well, actually, I wouldn't say alcoholics drive. Do you guys think that alcoholics, like full-on alcoholics, drive the liquor industry? I feel like most alcohol consumption is done more casually. I don't know if like hardcore alcoholics are driving the majority of liquor sales or holding up the liquor industry in this country. Yes, they do. They do. I'm asking you guys legitimately. I don't know this. I don't know the numbers on it. I'm curious. So it's literally a whale situation. Okay, perfect. Cool.
All wasn't at random. It was considered luxury to an extent, and therefore the assumption was that the response
I don't think that price gouging, the consumers, like the people, like if you're an alcoholic, I don't think that price gouging by raising taxes for purchase of liquor is a good idea. I think not price gouging, but taxing the fuck out of the companies and putting in place restrictions on how much they can raise the price of their product to try to make that back in some way so that it doesn't end up punishing the consumer is the best way to do it. But having America put a cap on how much a company can sell their thing for is insane. Like, that's unheard of as far as I'm aware in American markets.
would be relatively calm.
At least for something like that.
At the same time, those who believed alcohol caused great pain in society through abuse, addiction, and drunkenness favored the tax to discourage its use. The response to this wasn't quite as calm as originally planned, and thus rebellion, death, and military response formed the core.
I really hope we see violent demonstrations over the vapes. Like, can you imagine the massacre, the Vape Nation massacres of LA in 2023 or something? Like the Vape Nation marches through the streets of LA destroying everything in their path to bring about justice for their It would be hilarious if this level of unrest was caused by California banning flavored vapes. Because, like, I know dozens of people in California that vape flavored vapes and are going to lose their shit over this. Like not just me. Like, I'm actually curious if this is going to be a big thing.
Of the Whiskey Rebellion. Again, a story for another day. Alcohol was divisive to many. To some, it was a necessary part of life, an extension of the freedom Americans fought to gain. To others, it corrupted good men into shells of their former selves. Throughout the years, resistance to alcohol consumption grew. The resistance formed the core of temperance movements that popped up all over the world during the 18th through 20th centuries. As the 1800s went on, resistance to alcohol transformed from stopping alcoholism to stopping consumption of alcohol in general. Religion was quite core to the movement, with the drink being seen as immoral, as well as various women's rights movements, as drunk men could return home from bars to commit violence against family members.
Feminists and the women's rights movements, the left, heavily supported prohibition along with the extremely insane Christian right. Just very similar situation to the vaping thing. You see conservatives trying to like Trump tried to ban vaping. One of the biggest things that harmed Trump's reputation was when he tried to ban vapes. He tried to and failed. He got a lot of pushback for that, and he went back on it entirely. This isn't a leftist movement? No, but I think the fact that, like, the American left at the time fell for this prohibition bullshit shows how a liberal state like California can fall for very similar, stupid, puritanical, anti-freedom policy like this. Like, I also believe the Democrats are stupid when it comes to guns. I'm pro-gun. I think the Democrats are really stupid when it comes to guns. If the Democrats just stopped trying to fight against guns, they would guarantee themselves a lot more election wins. Like, being anti-gun in America is a losing strategy. It's just a guaranteed losing strategy.
At the same time, poor water in the nation made alcohol quite the go-to drink for not catching various diseases.
Exactly, right? Like, the Jon Snow guy literally looked at the maps to see, people living near breweries and drinking a lot of alcohol aren't getting cholera as often.
Prohibitionists, also known as dries, attempted to fix this by creating fountains of which people could get clean water for free.
That's
While
good.
These private ventures would not pop up everywhere due to cost, it was a movement in its own right, and some still stand today. Maine law seems to be a big catalyst in the advent of the prohibition movement. For the first time, state law dictated the sale of all alcohol, except for medicine. Not particularly popular with many, and eventually led to a violent riot.
Holy fuck, Xander Hall, apparently excessive drinkers make up 77% of alcohol revenue in 2013 to 2014 in the UK. Hey, guess what? Guess what is a common, not common, but a risk of quitting cold turkey on alcohol? You can get symptoms like shakes, insomnia, nausea, diarrhea, constipation, I wonder how that works, and sometimes death. Death by seizure, apparently. Yeah, seizures as well. Cardiac arrest, apparently, is possible. Jesus Christ. So yeah, quitting cold turkey on alcohol, pretty bad once you gain a dependence to it. It's not good to cut an entire population off cold turkey for something that they become physically dependent on because they don't quit. They find illegal ways to get it that might hurt them, or something bad happens to them, or they have to go through cold turkey quitting. Some people die, some people are just miserable through it. It makes no sense. It's stupid. This is not something we needed to do. The prohibition wasn't necessary, nor was the banning of flavored vapes. The best thing to do with these substances is to regulate the ever-living fuck out of them, which you cannot do if they are criminalized. If they are legal, and these industries are completely legal and heavily overlooked by the government, so it is way easier, cheaper, and safer to buy these substances legally and safely from institution or from organizations that can give some part of their proceeds through taxes to the government for bettering our lives. Like, this is literally just basic politics. The drug war didn't work. Prohibition didn't work. Banning guns doesn't work. This doesn't work. Or the vape ban won't work. It'll just be another political failure.
Regardless, it inspired other states to seek prohibition, even though this major riot caused the repeal of the law, only to again be legislated just 3 decades later. It would be in the 1890s when more serious movements against alcohol started. The most important of these would be the Anti-Saloon League, or ASL. ASL was promoted as a religion-based organization that existed solely to combat alcohol. The goal was to ban it outright, and the means of doing this were quite shady, to say the least. ASL truly mastered the art of influencing mass media. It would function as a group that screamed the loudest, that fought the dirtiest, and would refuse to stop its goals. It would gain political allies through thinly veiled corruption. Basically, ASL would confront a politician, and if they agreed to join the cause, they would almost have a guaranteed spot in office. If they refused, they would nearly guaranteed to lose the election. ASL was a political powerhouse that got whatever it wanted. It gained a fervent following among many, from progressives to racists, from intellectuals to the common worker. By using the persuasion of religion and morality, it would grow astronomically. The leader of this league was Wayne Wheeler, quite an unassuming looking man. An Ohioan who grew up on a farm, he would grow deep resentment from a young age for
everything bad comes from Ohio.
Alcohol. He was injured by a worker on the farm who was quite drunk and managed to stab him with his farm tools. This event transformed Wheeler, who would go on to join the ASL after college. Starting low in the ranks, he would quickly move up with his natural, undying hatred of alcohol. He realized to further the movement, he needed a lot of public approval, and fast. This began his policy of Wheelerism, which would use—
Yeah, who would have thought some asshole had a personal experience that pissed him off, and that drove him to force a different way of life on millions of Americans? Who could have possibly thought that's something that could happen?
The media to make it seem as though the general public was all in on a specific issue. How would this be achieved? Some rather dark means, actually. This is where the corruption comes into play, as fear against the ASL rained down for politicians. Wheeler was, by many means, not a man to argue with. He was unwilling to change minds on his beliefs, and instead opted to resort to pushing for laws that would be obviously against the general public. He saw only one option. Now, it's not to say the movement was all based in less than moral messaging and corruption. Many citizens supported ASL simply because they believed alcohol was genuinely making the world a worse place. Some just had a distaste of Germans after the war, and German culture was quite fond of alcohol. Anyway, for many, the idea was that if alcohol was eliminated, crime associated around—
People tried to argue that being anti-alcohol was pro-American. Because remember, this is after World War I, so the Germans were kind of, they were the bad guys right now, right? Like, they were coming out of World War I, and so they tried to use that. Oh, the Germans are alcoholic. You don't want to be like the Germans, do you? As a way to push the they literally used nationalism to push the prohibition.
Alcohol would be too. Oh boy, were they wrong. This leads us to December 18th, 1917. On this day, the 18th Amendment was passed, which banned the creation and sale of alcohol. This did not apply to drinking it, however, so a rather major loophole existed for many. It would also be quite a while before this would be ratified. In the meantime, the Wartime Prohibition Act of 1917 would be passed, banning all alcohol over 2.75%. While it was intended to ration grain for the war effort, this would not be its final purpose, as the war ended just a week earlier. By January 16, 1919, the 18th Amendment was ratified, and alcohol would be made illegal on January 17, 1920. The Volstead Act was introduced to set forth more standards on the 18th Amendment, such as the specific percentages of alcohol allowed in home beverages, usually limited to 0.5%, passed on October 28, 1919. The immediate response to this was actually what was intended. Less people drank, and it seemed like overall the goal of the temperance movement succeeded. But this would start the downfall of the Prohibition movement. Literally, just as it was starting. Business-savvy crime leaders saw opportunity in the passing of the act. The demand for alcohol would rise, and only those willing to operate outside the law would be willing to supply it. Some began to gather.
Go on. I want you to replace alcohol here with vapes.
And collect alcohol in huge numbers, as to sell it once the law would pass. As this illegal sale of alcohol became more fruitful, violence began.
Oh, I guarantee, the plugs already buying up the vape stores all over the fucking state. Already buying up all the different flavors, stocking the fuck up, ready for when this goes through and all the teens have to hit up illegal means and whatnot. Not even teens, even. Anybody who wants, like, a lot of people who are just, like, I live literally 8 hours away from the state border. I have to, like, I can't afford to go through nicotine withdrawals at my customer service job, where I have to get yelled at and screamed at and berated by the biggest assholes you can imagine all day. I can't afford to go through withdrawals now, so I'm going to have to hit up some illegal means to get my vape so that I can actually go to work and be productive and do what I need to do, because I can't afford to be bedridden for the next few days at least, going through nicotine withdrawals with the shakes and the vomiting and the misery. Legit my problem. They're going to be surprised Pikachu face when vapes start showing up on the black market anyway after this ban. Oh, the deaths? Oh, guys. Black market vape deaths are like the Indian reservation? Really? Wait. The reservations will be won't have to follow this law? I'll just go to the res. Okay, never mind. I could walk to a nearby reservation where I could probably, yeah, okay, as long they operate on federal law. Oh, okay. Hey. God. Colonialism is cringe. You know who isn't trying to ban our vapes right now? The Native Americans. Who would have thought?
Began to grow. Gang leaders became wealthy men, and this wealth brought power, control of vast areas with their resources. They were quite well known, in fact, and this would lead many to question, why weren't they arrested? The reason?
I just thought of a really funny comparison that might get me canceled. So I'm gonna be fleeing to Native American land to buy my vapes, like during slavery. Escaped slaves would literally flee to native like tribes and native camps and native towns because they wouldn't turn in escaped slaves to the colonialist white British, French, and whatever other groups of people were coming to take over America at the time. So it's a bit like that. It's a bit like that.
Well, they were too powerful. If somebody would attempt to call
there's literally a reservation right next to Palm Springs. We all good.
Out, arrest them, or inform police, they would be killed or bribed. Those who demanded prohibition for a safer world were quite disappointed, to say the least. Crime rose, and many died. It seemed fairly evident the movement was failing. Many people would drink alcohol in these days under the safety of a local speakeasy. This location, hidden from local authorities, would garner a culture of its own. Women were more accepted here than bars of days past, and the world of men-only bars seemed to disappear. Jazz was very popular, and would reach mainstream status fairly quickly.
All of the things that were good that came out of the Prohibition were from people subverting the Prohibition. Jazz got its start in speakeasies that were underground alcohol consumption areas to hide from the Prohibition. I don't know if you're aware of this, but that means that like most modern day music goes back to speakeasies. Like the roots of most modern day music goes back to people performing music illegal establishments made to avoid unjust laws keeping them from the consumption of something they should be able to choose to consume. This is my libertarian art, guys.
Opted for a more personal route. Moonshine would be made from homes with sometimes dangerous results, and personal wine cubes could be sold as fruit drinks that would include instructions on how to ferment. The American government wasn't too happy with the home brewing that was occurring, and the action it would take still leaves many in disbelief. Manufacturers of ethyl alcohol, a key ingredient to many homebrewers, would be instructed to basically poison the ingredient to a point where people would be blinded or killed if they attempted to drink it.
The US government was willing to poison and kill people illegally consuming alcohol rather than legalize it and allow its sale in a better way. Not only that, but I can draw a direct comparison to what is going to happen here in California. Almost every vape-related illness, death, or whatever that I have heard about has come from black market vapes, where, like, they're made with subpar materials and sold illegally, and the vape juices, like, the heavy metals leach into the vape juices and into the lungs, and people get sick and sometimes die. It's almost always from black market vapes. Not the ones that have been, like, what's the word? Like, not the ones that have been made by, like, a mainstream company, inspected, and are regulated by the government. No, it's from the black market vapes. And guess what? A lot more people in California are going to be using those black market vapes. You're going to see, not quite deaths in the scale of what happened here, but definitely an uptick in vaping-related deaths in California just because of this. Because the vapes that most people are going to be consuming, or at least a higher percentage of the vapes people will be consuming now, are going to be illegal black market, scuffed as fuck ones that are giving you cancer faster than normal vapes are.
This happened, obviously, but it seems hard to pinpoint a number of how many were killed by this.
Yeah, they'll refill these things. See this? This is a Cool Mint Flum. They'll refill these with some homemade juice. And like cobble the thing back together and resell it. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen. Like, black market vapes often contain vitamin E, which gives you lipid pneumonia, which will straight up kill you. Yup. And guess what? A lot of those black market vapes are going to be all over the place in California now.
Rather terrifying action. The ASL was supportive of this movement, with old Wheeler going so far as to suggest that this was what was needed to happen. Support plummeted for the ASL, and it soon seemed apparent that the Prohibition movement lost most of its support. As the Great Depression caused major financial issues for the nation, legalization of alcohol became quite less of a necessity for the United States. After all, crime lords made billions off untaxed alcohol. Now America needed some of that dough. In March of 1933, this would lead to the Cullen-Harrison Act of 1933, which would legalize alcohol below 3.2%, which effectively legalized bars again. While not truly back to the level of days before Prohibition, it was a start. With this came the 21st Amendment on December 5th, 1933, effectively repealing the 18th. Contrary to some belief, it didn't actually make alcohol legal. It just leaves that up to the state. It removes the status.
This is only for tobacco products. The ban that we're talking about is only for tobacco products, so I don't believe that this will be affecting vapes. But none of the vapes that I use are flavored. This is just I think this is sour diesel. No, hold on. Super lemon haze. This is super lemon haze. So, like, yeah, it has a bit of a lemony flavor to it, but that's just because it's distilled. It's a distilled strain of weed that has a bit of a citrusy, lemony flavor to it. So it just happens to have a little bit of lemon in it. But that wasn't an added flavor. That was just the strain that they took flour from, rolled out till they got the nice goo out of it, melted down, and then put in there. It has limonene in it. They're natural terpenes. Yeah, but is that flavoring? Super Lemon Haze has tons of limonene. Is that like a terpene from lemon? They add the terpenes back into the distillate, like you're thinking resin. Oh, okay. I'm thinking resin, not... Is this... Wouldn't this be resin, or is this distillate? It's hard to say. Weed talk is fucking confusing. But no, regardless, though, I don't think these things are going to be affected, at least unless they try to pass another bill.
status of alcohol being outright illegal to make and sell everywhere in the USA, and states have taken up this opportunity. In many places, it's illegal to sell alcohol in stores on Sundays, and in others, it is much more.
There's literally like laws about selling alcohol at certain times of day and on certain days. Like I learned about this when in North Carolina, we went to like go shopping. And my mom wanted to pick up some like vodka from the store, and they were like, sorry, we can't sell alcohol past this hour. We're closing up. And it's like, what? It's like, yeah, no, in this state, you can't sell alcohol past this hour on this day, or some shit like that. It was really, really stupid.
Restrictive. Kansas would make it so alcohol.
I was literally 13 years old, and remember my jaw dropping and be like, in America? What the fuck? Like, I remember legitimately being confused by that.
Not be served in a public bar until 1987, and even further, Mississippi still kept the same laws of prohibition until 1966. The effects of prohibition seem a bit abstract today. Obviously, alcohol is sold, and the foundation of many businesses here in the States. Bars function as social hubs for men and women alike, a result of the speakeasy days. Jazz is mainstream. What I'm getting at is the results of prohibition have changed America. How much? Well, let's ask ourselves. What if prohibition never had? Just kidding. Why do you think prohibition failed? Would you like to see more videos like this? Like, comment, and...
Nice. Anyway, do you guys understand now, considering the history of the drug war and prohibition in America, and also, of course, my own personal bias, why this ban on flavored vapes flavored tobacco vapes in California is stupid? Like, not only is it going to mean shit tons of nicotine addicts switch to smoking, but it's also going to mean the vapes that are still consumed are going to come from illegal sources. So it's going to be funding illegal organizations and other crime enterprises. And not only that, but it's going to hurt people, because people are going to be using black market vapes, refilled flums and shit like that, and getting sick, whether it be because of the vitamin C, whatever the fuck it was that gives people pneumonia, or because of leaching heavy metals into the vapor that literally just puts heavy metals in you and kills you the way that putting heavy metals in your body tends to kill you. Like, I feel like we were past prohibition when it came to things like this, but apparently not. I agree with trying to make it so it's harder for teens, like high schoolers and young people, to get their hands on vapes. I want to talk about my solutions to the vape problem, because there is a vape problem. I don't think it's the flavors. I think the flavors are fine. I think vaping specifically, it's kind of necessary. Like, the flavors are kind of necessary because of what it is. It's not the same as smoking like literally just smoking dried tobacco leaves. Like, and that is enough, kind of, if you're a smoker. I think the flavors themselves are fine. I think it's the advertising of it that is bad. Can I find some, like, vape packaging? This is what I think is the problem. They need to go like full rotten teeth and diseased lungs on the packaging for vapes, okay? Like, look at this shit. This should not be allowed. This type of like advertisement. This looks like it's supposed to catch the Vape War. Look at this. Vape Wars, fucking Star Wars vapes. Like, look at this shit. This should not be allowed. This shit, look at this. Candy, Kush candy. Is this weed? Yeah, this is weed. Even the weed, yeah, the weed stuff does it too. They need to shut that shit down with the weed stuff too. A lot of the advertising is the kind of stuff that we agreed a long time ago either needed to be completely flat and blank as not to attract children or younger people to the aesthetic, or it needs to be outright repulsive. I'd be fine if this thing was literally covered in a collage of rotten teeth and diseased lungs and like people with holes in their throat or whatever. Like, I would be fine with that, and I think that would have a pretty positive impact. Tobacco companies have historically always advertised to the youngest demographics they can to get away with without saying it outright. Yeah, of course, and that's the kind of thing that needs to be fought, not outright prohibition of the products. It doesn't work. Anyway, it's also really stupid because vapes have also been very helpful in prisons. Guess what they don't do in prisons anymore? Usually. Make the prisoners quit smoking cold turkey. They typically have been trying to avoid doing that now because they realize how bad it is to have a bunch of... I haven't had a smoke in so long, man. A bunch of jonesing prisoners. That is my take overall on the vaping ban, like the flavored tobacco product vape ban. I think it is very, very stupid. They're just still spamming it. I think it's very stupid. And I don't think it's going to have any desired outcome of reducing the amount of people that are vaping. I think it's going to increase the amount of people smoking, and I think it's going to increase the amount of severe health problems that people are going to get because of vaping. I don't think it's going to have pretty much any positive outcomes. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications, and of course, if you want to see more from me on YouTube, on the internet, make sure to follow my social medias, which are linked down below in the description. And of course, if you want to support me financially, you could do so by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub through my website, xanderhall.com/live, or perhaps even supporting me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or even through Patreon. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.